tonight I wanted to kind of start off talking, we're going to get to Worth in just a second, but a bit about me and myself and give a little bit of my testimony, and then a little bit about Worth and a little bit about what we're going to do for the next 3 weeks. Cool? You got that? So a little bit about me. If you haven't introduced yourself to me, I don't know your name. Cool. Grayson, we met. We got you. But if you have introduced yourself to me and it was like 2 weeks ago and it was like, hey, my name's Katie, I probably still don't remember your name, and I'm really sorry about that. But I'm really good with faces. And so if anything, I will smile and pretend like I know your name and then ask you later. So if I ask you, please don't be offended, because I really, truly want to get to know you. And sometimes that, for me, looks like, hey, oh, yeah. Like Grayson, like, really loves 9 Square. And, you know, we have those experiences together, and that's how I get to know you and get to know who these people are. Does that make sense? So after this, if you are hanging around and waiting on your small group, introduce yourself to me. I would love that. So cool? Cool? Oh, awesome. I'm so happy. Another thing, so introduce yourself to me, and another thing is invite me to places. So my main purpose here is to get to know y'all, and I get to know you by being your biggest cheerleader. And one of my jobs is to make sure that you are becoming disciples of this world, right? Yes. Make disciples, and make more disciples, right? So in order to do that, you got to invite me to places. So whether that's a soccer game, whether that's a band concert, whether that is, you know, whatever theater thing, or if you're like, hey, Kate, like, I don't do any of that stuff, but I love hanging out at Starbucks. Preach, girl. Let me get you a coffee. I'll get myself a tea, and we'll sit there and chit chat. Got it? Okay, good. Grayson's got this. Okay, now on to what we're supposed to actually be talking about, Worth. So who in here watches Netflix? Right, go ahead and raise your hand. Yep, that's about what I thought. So a little bit of facts for you. We have 94 million subscribers to Netflix in the US. 94 million. That's only the subscribers. You know how like things, you can have like different profiles, and like maybe your family has one. So 94 million subscribers. So just imagine how many people like watch Netflix either on a weekly or daily basis. Anybody here watch completely on a daily basis? Yep. Okay. Well, right now Netflix has a lot to do with our world because we spend so much time with it, right? So if you're going to spend like 3 or 4 hours a day, hopefully not, but sometimes, you know, on a Saturday, you just got to watch 3 or 4 episodes and move on with your life and a little binge watch. But if we are watching that for 3 or 4 hours a day, that is influencing so much of what we do. It's showing us who we are, showing us how we should act, how other people should act around us, and what we should think about other life situations. And so, as we were coming up with things, the staff was like, okay, like what do our kids need to hear this upcoming year? And one of those things was we wanted to know that they are worthy, and they are worth so much more. And so this is how this series was born. And so this week we're going to talk about the I was. Next week we'll talk about I am, and then the next I will be. So just letting you know, we have 3 weeks in this, and so get ready to kind of binge watch for 3 weeks about something like that. So tonight we're talking about the I was, and I wanted to give you little 3 parts of my testimony and 3 truths that I think that can come out of this. So I was, so we're talking about the past, right? Right? Yeah. So what I'm going to kind of do is take you back for 10 years, take you back 3 years, take you back to just maybe this past year, and kind of talk through 3 truths. So when I think about where I was 10 years ago, I was just beginning high school, and I thought the world was my oyster, right? So nothing could stop me. I participated in every club. I was SGA president my senior year, so I got started in that my like freshman and sophomore year. I ran track. I did every single musical or play that the school put on. I was at church every Sunday, and I thought I could do everything, right? But as most of y'all know, as much as you add on, you're exhausted, right? So you put so many things, but I was looking and I was like, you know, like I can do this one more thing. I can do this one more thing. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a family of 5. Oh, it's partly a family of 5 now. I have 2 older brothers. 2 taller brothers, 1 younger, 1 older. They're both about yay. So if you see pictures of me and like super tall people, that's my family. I am now the shortest person in my family. Thanks, genes. But as I started high school, I started noticing that things were different from my family than everyone else's. My mom is an alcoholic, and so when I was younger, I would go around and like pour out her drinks and like would notice when she drank. And when I got into high school, I noticed things started happening more and more. So my parents started to fight a lot. Like dad didn't like live with us anymore, and so all of these things started happening in high school. And instead of dealing with those sorts of things, I put all of myself into things I could do. So remember how I said I did everything in high school? I did everything in high school. And since I'm a little competitive, I even tried to bring more stuff into the high school that I could be involved with. To say the least, I started a like honor society so I could beat my brother in how many chords we had in high school graduation. Dumb thing, but I did it and I won, just letting you know. So while all of this was happening, I started to like not go back. I hated going back home to my family. So I would spend like nights out and, till like 11 o'clock, curfew of high school. 11 o'clock, the state said you had to be in. So I was inside my house, not driving at 11. But I didn't like being at home. And so I started going, God, like, I do all of these things, like I pray regularly, like I have great friends, like I go to church, like why isn't everything perfect for me? Why am I so different? And God kind of laughs when you just say, what? Like, I hate you and I don't like any of this. And then during one of our youth week sort of things, we talked about the prodigal son. Anybody in here know what that story is? Prodigal son? Couple? Okay, awesome. So the prodigal son is in Luke, and it's basically a story about two sons. One goes off, says, hey, Dad, I want all of my inheritance right now. And Dad goes, okay, and gives him, half of everything. And the son goes out and squanders it and all around, and there's one brother who stayed at home. And if you read the story, at the very end, the father welcomes the prodigal son home, open arms, huge feast, and then you get to the point where the prodigal son brother is furious, right? And so I wanted to read you just a little bit about what happened. I'll just tell you in my own words. Reading up here in the light is kind of useless. So when the prodigal son comes home, father open wide, give him a ring, gave him sandals, all of these things, and the older brother comes back from the field and is like, what is this party going on? Like, what happened? And one of the servants is like, hey, your brother came home and he was once lost and now is found, and now we're having this huge party. And so the older brother gets so angry and doesn't go in. So the father comes out and he's like, no, son, like, come on, like, your brother is home. Your brother is here. And the brother was like, no, I'm done. Like, you didn't even give me, a skinny goat to celebrate with my friends. Everything I have done is for you. And the father quickly turns it around and says, look, whatever I have is yours. But we have to celebrate because the lost were now found. Well, being a teenager, like, I've really felt that prodigal son brother. I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. You didn't even give me a moment to celebrate. I don't get a moment of rest. I'm doing all of these great things. And then all of a sudden, looking back on it now, hindsight's 20/20, I was doing that to myself. I was putting all of my worth into things that I was doing, things I could actually do, and covering up things that I should have been doing. So our first truth is that the gift of prevenient grace. So my gift when I was in high school was that God was continually working in my heart, continually preparing me for whatever he has planned for me from the future. But always there, even when I did not believe it myself. So, prevenient grace, if you've never heard about it before, John Wesley and us as the United Methodists kind of say that prevenient grace is this gift that God is always working in and through our lives. We don't have to know about God. We don't have to say Jesus is our Savior or anything. But this prevenient grace is always surrounding us with love and with grace. So one of our truths, I was surrounded by prevenient grace. And so are you, and so have you been your entire life. Okay, so our second truth comes from about 3 years ago. I was down in Birmingham, Alabama. This is where I had my last job. And I felt like I was living my best life, right? It was my first big-time job. I was doing all these things. I had friends down there. I had a great boyfriend. I was doing great work. I was really getting, feeling my calling and all of these things. And all of a sudden, in between 3 months, I started to lose little bit by little bit of what I thought I had. So a couple of my friends, we all met after Wednesday nights and kind of hung out and just griped and, kind of sat around and was like, just hung out, right? So after long days, we actually got to be together and be who we wanted to be with. So it's like a solid Friday night, right? You get some popcorn, watch a movie, you really feel each other. Cool. All right, so within about 3 months, one of the girls I was hanging out with moved away. She's going on to, get her master's in divinity. We were so happy for her. But, it's kind of like your best friend moves away into, Boston, way up north. Come on. Okay, well, cool. I still have, 4 more people. And one by one reason or another, they all moved away. And I was like, man, I had this great time in Birmingham. What is happening? I have to go make new friends now. Oh man, I don't want to put myself back out there. And also I work at church, and that kind of puts weird things. Because what if I don't want to hang out with someone that goes to my own church because they're a different church? And it's just all really confusing, right? Once you have your group of friends, you're kind of stuck with them. And you're like, no, I want my group of friends. I trust them, and I love them, and I would do anything for them. But when we're not seeing each other every week, not seeing each other every day, you kind of lose that best friend and that really closeness. So the second thing, the truth, is that you are worth the best kinds of people. I was worth being around good people. And so after all of these people sort of went away, I myself turned away. I started looking at Instagram and what they were doing, and I started looking at other things like Facebook or whatever, watching Netflix shows, you see all of these girls or groups of guys, they all have really close friends. And I didn't have that. But instead of reaching out, I kind of withdrew a little bit and was like, well, if these good people were supposed to find me, I guess, they'll come and find me. I wasn't reaching out because I didn't believe that I was worth being around good people and good friends. But this is our second truth of the night. You are worth being around good people and good friends. Because when you are around those good people and those good friends, you give them worth as well. You can help them through their struggles, just like they help you through yours. All right, so one more truth, right? We got our first truths, prevenient grace, and you are worth being around good people. The last one, last spring, I finally had the chance to take my mom back to rehab. So she has been in rehab 4 or 5 different times. None of them have been the right kind of fit. And so this past spring, I flew over to Jackson, and we had a huge intervention. Everyone was there. There was lots of tears. And immediately, my mom and I and one of the counselors flew up to Minnesota. And if you've ever been to Minnesota, it was March, and there was still snow on the ground, and that just boggled my mind, right? We have snow for maybe 2 seconds, and we get out of school for a week. And I was like, what? They have 6 feet of snow. Why is everyone in school? Boggled my mind. Not the point, still boggled my mind. So as we were going through and driving all the way through, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to drop off my mom for 4 months and not really talk to her. I can write her letters, and once a week I can have a phone call, but that was going to be it. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? This is my mom. She carried me for 9 months, and all of these things kept happening. And while we were driving up in the car, she turned to me and she was like, Kate, what am I doing? And I was like, I don't know, Mom, but we're here to get you better. And so I have a little favorite Bible verse. If you don't have one, highly suggest it for times like these. So one of mine is Esther 4:14. And that's when Mordecai met Esther outside of the gate and pleaded with her that she helped the Jews. Because she was inside hanging out with the king, being his wife. And then all of a sudden the Jews were being persecuted. And she herself was a Jew. And so Mordecai turns to her and is like, look, Esther, we need your help. Maybe you were born for such a time as this. And so that's what I had to keep repeating to myself was, Kate, maybe you were born for such a time as this. Maybe you were created. Maybe God looked at Genesis, and after he created Adam and Eve, at the same time goes, oh yeah, in 1992, I'm gonna create this girl named Kate, and she has a great plan. I'm gonna create this guy named Adam, and we're gonna put him at Bumsey just for, the director, he's pretty good about that, right? So I believe that God has a plan for all of our lives, and that our worth comes from our creation, not what we have done, not what we have completed, but instead because of what has been done for us. So our final truth, your worth, I was worthy because of who I am created to be. I am worthy because of who I am created to be. And we're all created for a purpose, right? We all have our gifts and our skill sets that are perfectly designed for who we are. And I tell you these truths not really to, go, oh man, I'm gonna look back at my life and, hindsight's 2020. Maybe I can find something there. You will find something there now when you look back. But let me tell you, you are worth so much more than you give yourself credit for. You are worth so much more. And when I think about my parents and all the things that they have taught me, the one thing that I absolutely love is my dad looks at me and is like, you know what, I love you, but God has to love you more because I'm just not really happy with you right now. Whenever you get in trouble like that. And so it just sticks in my head that no matter how much my parents love me, God's love for me is infinitely more. God believes I'm worth so much more than any of that. And so you are not at all what society tells you are. You're not only a jock. You are not only an artsy sort of person. You are not only the smart one or the dumb one or the one that talks all the time in worship. You are not only those sorts of people. But then what are you? The last sort of challenge of the night, first one is introduce yourself to me. Second thing is invite me to places, right? We still got those challenges. The last challenge of the night starts with this. Look back of who you were, why you were created, and be ready to come next week to talk about who you are. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for all that we are.